Dr. David Awurawo is an associate professor of history and strategic studies at the University of Lagos. Earlier, I spoke to him about the future of North Korea's relations with the South and the rest of the world. Dr. Awurawo, thank you so much for joining us on Diplomatic Channel. I believe you were here the last time we talked about, North Korea, giving the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, giving that announcement about the cessation of his nuclear program and then shutting down a nuclear site in the country. But months before now, we've seen the North Korean leader take certain steps that seem to be quite presidential, quite conciliatory, and extending sort of like a hand of friendship, to other neighbors. He agreed to talks with President Donald Trump, agreed to talks with his South Korean counterpart. Then we saw the South Korean and the North Korean athletes come together under one umbrella at the Winter Olympics. What do you make of all of this?
Well, what I make of all of this is that Kim Jong-un has calculated that this is the right time for him to take a turn for the better, so to speak, that will lead to an improvement in relations between North Korea and the rest of the world. And the timing is interesting because the tension that built up, in the course of and in the aftermath of the nuclear tests of last year, much of last year, has put him in a position where he thinks that if he begins to negotiate now, he will gain maximally. So I think he has calculated and established that this is the right time for him to begin to negotiate with the rest of the world to gain maximally for his country. That is what I think, has happened. Although some have said, well, the sanctions have, been so intense, that too will have contributed. But sanction or no sanction, he has weathered through all the while until now. And he has established that this will be the opportune time for him to reach out to the rest of the world and gain maximally for North Korea.
Oh, he came prepared to that meeting with his counterpart Moon Jae-in. He agreed to end hostile activities between the two nations, agreed that they should change the DMZ into a peace zone by ceasing propaganda broadcasts from the South, arms reduction in the region, pending the easing of military tension, pushing for four-way talks with the U.S. and China, among other things. What do you make of these moves for renewed alliance with the South? Do you think this could have anything to do with the U.S. and perhaps China, North and South Korea joining forces against these other powers?
Well, I don't think it has so much to do with the United States. I think it has almost everything to do with North Korea's estimation for the way things have gone and determination of this time as the right time for peace talks to begin with the rest of the world. Remember that sanctions have been on for a long, long time. All of these rhetoric have gone on for a long, long time. And the man simply, the sanctions have brought poverty to, but the leaders didn't bother until now. Yeah. So I think it has a whole lot to do with the estimation that having acquired nuclear weapons, haven't got to this level. United States is never going to attack North Korea at this point, and haven't rigged up all of the tension in the past couple of months before now taking, the turn for negotiations. I think it has to do with everything to do with all of that, and of course also the disposition of the leader of South Korea. The so-called sunshine, negotiations and moves policy were abandoned in 2010. They were revitalized by the new leader of South Korea in last year, about a year ago, 2017, and here we are. So I don't think it has too much to do with United States. I think it has a great deal to do with the estimation of the right time, South Korea, and to some extent, China.
Yeah, you see the North Korean leader really exerting his influence in the Korean peninsula. He's the star of the moment. He created the tension, and now he's the one taking the tension away. Being the star of the moment, he had announced a halt in North Korea's nuclear program, which probably means that North Korea already is nuclearized. If everyone in the world is listening, he was shutting down a nuclear site. He also seems to have He's had very calculated moves, it appears. Spent a whole year developing nuclear weapons, testing them, threatening the U.S., saying, I have a weapon that can reach mainland United States, not just Guam. Sparred off with U.S. President Donald Trump. It just seems like, you know, he sort of prides himself as being, you know, a controller, a leader. I mean, at this point, he can do whatever he wants and not be punished for it. Sanctions have had no impact on North Korea.
Well, yes. Like I said before, except there are coincidences that we're not aware of. But if we were to assess what has gone on and the timing of, you know, the talks and all, it's just the right time for North Korea. And if it is not accidental, then it will mean that the North Korean leader and, you know, the North Korean leadership is not as, quote unquote, stupid as people thought. Because, I mean, where we are now, North Korea will likely gain almost everything it wants. Remember also that at the meeting of, you know, Friday the 27th, the man did not say he will denuclearize.
No, he didn't.
He talked about peace. He talked about, you know, diffusing tension on the peninsula. He talked about friendship. He talked about cultural, you know, cooperation and things like that. But he was careful not to use the word denuclearize, and that is where we fear for the future, you know, beyond the razzmatazz.
Well, let's hope that those smiles that they had at the border were genuine. Let's hope the handshakes were genuine, and we look forward, of course, to...
It seems so. I'm optimistic that, well, something positive will come from all that has happened.
Yeah, there are many people banking on that, especially with North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, on board. Thank you so much, Dr. Awarawo.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
When we come back after the break, the U.S. may have one less thing to worry about, but trade issues with China may not be one of them.